breaking down a story that starts exactly like that, but rapidly spirals into absolute unimaginable terror. We're going to analyze a first-hand account from Bionic Talk, a genuinely chilling narrative about a guy named Rohan and his 4 best friends. We are going to map out the exact anatomy of a true nightmare and see step by step how a fun getaway transformed into a literal fight for survival. Let's just dive right in.
So here's the crucial question we need to look at. What actually happens when a completely spontaneous road trip crosses over into a supernatural nightmare? I mean, it's a scenario we've all seen in horror movies, right? But when you break down this first-hand account, the psychology of their panic is just fascinating. We're going to track the escalating descent of these 5 friends who made one seemingly small, bad decision that locked them into a terrifying trap. It all starts out so incredibly normal. Mundane even. You've got 5 college buddies, Rohan, Sahil, Vicky, Mohit, and Darun. They're working the corporate grind in Gorgon, and they decide to take a week off to drive down to Jaisalmer. They're singing, they're joking around, just completely relatable stuff. But this ordinary trip shifts into a horrific supernatural trap so fast. And honestly, the horror is amplified precisely because their starting point was just so incredibly normal.
Their journey kicks off great. They leave in the morning, and by evening, they cross the Rajasthan border. But the fatal mistake happens late at night. Mohit, who is clearly the most sensible one of the group, warns them to just stop in Jaipur for the night. But pumped on adrenaline, they completely ignore him and push through the dead of night, and wouldn't you know it, right at 1:30 a.m. on a totally deserted highway with absolutely zero cell network, their car just jolts and dies.
Look, we all know desperation makes you do crazy things, right? They're stranded in pitch blackness for half an hour when suddenly they spot a mysterious girl walking all alone in traditional Rajasthani clothing. They ask her for help and she tells them, "There's a mechanic in my village. It's not far." Now, instead of asking themselves why on earth a young woman is walking alone on a dead zone highway at 2 a.m., their sheer desperation just completely overrides their logic. They lock the car, grab their bags, and blindly follow her down this narrow, thorny dirt path.
About 20 minutes later, they arrive, and the reality of their situation finally hits them. The village is completely, utterly deserted. I'm talking about a suffocating, dead silence. Every single house is crumbling and ruined. The girl tells them to just wait outside a large, broken-down house while she fetches the mechanic, and then she simply vanishes into the dark alleys.
Mohit is the first one to actually voice what everyone's thinking. He says, "Rohan, I don't feel good about this place." It's that classic horror movie trope, right? The voice of reason getting completely ignored. The boys are standing out there in the dark, time is ticking by, and the oppressive silence of this ghost town is really starting to crack their nerves. But Rohan, driven by this strange mix of curiosity and swearing he saw the girl inside one of the houses, manages to convince the group to go inside and look for her.
Okay, this is where our explainer takes a massive, massive turn into the macabre. They push open the creaking door of this ruined house, and immediately they are hit by an unbearable putrid stench, like rotting meat. Rohan shines his phone's flashlight into the inner room, and they make a sickening discovery. There are 10 to 12 headless, completely skinned human bodies just hanging from the ceiling. The floor is absolutely slick with blood. The guys are just utterly paralyzed by what they're looking at. And somehow, it actually gets worse. Sahil points a trembling finger up toward the corner of the ceiling, and they see her. The source describes this truly terrifying woman, the exact same girl who just led them there, but now she's clinging to the ceiling, crawling around like a lizard. She is a Chudail, a demonic witch. She stops, stares dead at them with her hair hanging down, lets out this ear-piercing, deafening scream, and then literally charges right at them across the ceiling. So what do you even do in that situation? Let's break down that frantic split-second escape plan. Step 1. They turn and sprint for the front door, but it has magically slammed shut and is locked from the outside. Total panic sets in. Step 2. Mohit spots a broken window frame with no glass. Step 3. It's literally jump for your life. One by one, Vicky, Tarun, Sahil, Mohit, and finally Rohan, they hurl themselves through the window right as the entity drops down on them, landing in the dirt outside while her horrific laughter just echoes behind them. Running completely blindly now, they duck behind a crumbling wall near the village square. But as they peer over it, they make a horrific realization. The village isn't deserted at all. The square is absolutely packed with hundreds of shadowy, blurry figures. Men, women, children, spirits.
and they're preparing this massive feast, boiling these giant pots, but there is absolutely no fire beneath them. The entire village was a supernatural trap from the very beginning.
To really understand what happens next, we have to talk about the concept of chalawa. It's basically a supernatural illusion designed specifically to lure victims to their death. Mohit realizes they're totally surrounded. The witch is behind them, an army of spirits is in front of them. Their only way out is exactly the way they came in. But he explicitly warns his friends, these entities will use chalawa. They're going to use psychological warfare to trick their minds. Which brings us to the ultimate survival rule. Mohit looks right at his friends and delivers this absolute, unbreakable directive. Don't look back. No matter what they hear, no matter if something calls their name, they must keep running. It will all be a psychological trick to trap them. On the count of 3, they burst from behind that wall and absolutely sprint toward the thorny path leading back to the highway.
The spirits immediately spot them. This deafening roar rises up as hundreds of footsteps start chasing them down the narrow dirt path. And then, tragedy strikes. Tarun, who's running near the back of the pack, trips and falls. Rohan hears Tarun screaming out, "Save me! Something grabbed my leg!" Rohan freezes. It doesn't sound like an illusion. It sounds exactly like his best friend in agonizing pain. He goes to turn around, but Mohit grabs Rohan's arm, screaming that it's a trap, and violently drags him forward, forcing him to leave Tarun behind in the darkness. After what must have felt like an absolute eternity of running, the 4 remaining friends stumble out of the dirt path and collapse onto the paved highway. The terrifying noise of the village abruptly stops. They're panting, bleeding, and just completely devastated by the loss of Tarun. As they look over at their broken-down car, which is supposed to be their only sanctuary, we have to ask, were they finally safe?
Yeah, the answer is a definitive no. As they approach the car, Vicky freezes. The rear door on the driver's side is slightly open, and they know for a fact Sahil locked it. Overcoming this immense wave of dread, Mohit opens the door and shines his phone light inside. The car is empty, but looking down at the floorboards, he spots Tarun's glasses. The exact same glasses Tarun was wearing when he was dragged away, now just sitting inside their locked car. The spirits had breached their sanctuary. Sahil just completely loses it. He starts screaming that they brought the evil right into the car. He jumps into the driver's seat and frantically turns the key. Nothing. It's completely dead. But then, almost as if the car itself is mocking them, the headlights snap on and the engine roars to life entirely on its own. The guys dive in and Sahil just slams on the gas, driving blind with panic, accelerating well past 120 kilometers per hour down the pitch-black highway. They're speeding away, leaving the village miles and miles behind them. But guys, the nightmare isn't over. Suddenly, that freezing, breath-stealing cold returns to the inside of the car, and that sickening, putrid stench of rotting flesh, it completely fills the cabin once again. Vicky, who is sitting right next to Rohan in the back seat, goes stiff as a board. Staring straight ahead, he whispers this to Rohan. Look in the mirror. Okay, this is the true jump scare of the whole story. Rohan slowly looks up at the rearview mirror. Reflected in the glass, he sees that there are 5 people in the car. Sitting right between him and Vicky is Tarun, but his neck is snapped at this horrific, unnatural angle. He is smiling this impossibly wide smile, literally stretching from ear to ear, and his eyes are completely pitch-black voids. The entity had been riding with them the whole time. Sahil, who's still driving frantically, looks up into the mirror and sees it too. He screams in sheer, absolute terror. And then, a disembodied voice. It sounds like Tarun, but it's echoing directly inside all of their heads at the exact same time, whispers this chilling phrase. Where will you go? The voice taunts Sahil, blaming him for leaving Tarun behind. And that's it. It completely, utterly shatters Sahil's sanity. Sahil screams, covers his ears, and literally lets go of the steering wheel while going over 120 kilometers an hour. Mohit lunges forward to grab it, but it's way too late. The car smashes right through the iron guardrails and plummets down into a deep ravine, rolling violently in the dark. But here's the twist, the crash wasn't an escape. When Rohan regains consciousness and drags himself from the wreckage, he realizes the geography makes absolutely zero sense. The bottom of the ravine funnels directly back to the entrance of the haunted village. It was an inescapable loop. Sahil and Vicky are dead in the wreckage. Mohit is alive, but his legs are completely crushed. Looking up,
They see the witch, the possessed Tarun, and that entire army of spirits slowly walking down the sides of the ravine towards them. In a truly heartbreaking final stand, Mohit refuses to let Rohan stay. He shoves Rohan toward the slope leading up to the highway, grabs a large rock and starts screaming at the entities, fighting them off with his bare hands just to buy Rohan enough time to climb out.
Rohan climbs. He's hearing the horrific sounds of his best friend being taken behind him, but honoring Mohit's final wish, he never looks back. He makes it to the highway and passes out. The aftermath of this is incredibly grim. The police find the wreckage the very next day and recover the bodies of Sahil and Vicky. But despite extensive searches, Tarun, Mohit, and that mysterious village are never found. 5 friends went on a road trip. Only one survived.
We have to close this narrative loop by looking at the harsh reality for the survivor. Rohan physically survived the haunted highway, sure, but psychologically, he never escaped. Years later, he is still entirely consumed by the trauma. Whenever he is alone in the dark, he still sees Tarun's impossibly wide smile, those pitch-black eyes, and he still hears that exact same voice whispering in his head, "Where will you go?" Which leads us with a final, really chilling thought to conclude our explainer today. We've mapped out exactly how a simple act of trusting a stranger, out of pure desperation, led to an inescapable trap. So ask yourself, next time your car breaks down on a deserted, pitch-black road at night, are you going to be so quick to ask a stranger for help? Think about that next time you go for a late-night drive. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning what's hiding in the shadows.